All right, so today's topic is web hosting. We'd have discussed it for the first class session. Um, somewhat at length, somewhat in detail, maybe not, in full details. But today, I hope we can explore in greater detail and with more scrutiny the different hosting options and the advantages slash disadvantages to each. As a web administrator or a webmaster or a web developer, you should be able to guide your client as to how to host, and that's if you're not reselling the hosting. All right. So I hope this session will give us some insight into what is expected and how to evaluate which option is best for which context. Right, programming is development is highly contextual. I don't think any language or platform is a one size fits all. Highly contextual. All right, so let's get into it. So pretty much, a website is the face of your business, or the face of whomever's business. And the reason I said whomever is that if you're the webmaster, that means you're managing somebody's website, and so that's the face of their business. If you're running an online store for yourself or an online business that is website driven, then you know that if it doesn't look good, then you know you're at a major disadvantage. I know people who prefer Amazon to eBay because eBay does not look safe, right? It doesn't look as safe as Amazon. So, your aesthetics play a huge part in the trust and the perceived reliability of your website. And yes, I agree, eBay is cheaper because even this laptop I bought recently, it was on eBay for $650 and it was on Amazon for $750, the same unit, right? Or maybe not the same unit, but equally capable unit, same specs, similar unit. But anyhow, so yeah, so your website is the face of your business. So apart from the aesthetics, you want to also think about the hosting names and the branding and the identity that you want to portray when people look at your link, when they look at your your homepage, your layout, all of those things. All right, so now we've established that we need a website. Why do we need to host it? Well, for one, you can have a website on the World Wide Web that's not hosted. Having the website on your machine, or the client having the website on their machine, next it's an intranet site, not an internet site. Right? So of course, you need to host it to have an online presence. This says better online presence. I just say an online presence. Why would you go to a third party host as opposed to going at it yourself? Unless you have enough money to build out a very capable data center. I can assure you that takes a whole lot of money buying all those powerful enough machines that you don't have to restart it every second, or when you have to restart one, another one is picking up the slack. If you all did networking or sysadmin, you'd understand that whole redundancy scenario, right? So, and like Sheldon is pointing out, in Jamaica we have, well, in parts of Jamaica that are not Kingston, and I can say that with confidence because I am from Mandeville, right? So I know the struggles of JPS in Mandeville, but I've been in Kingston for years, and believe you me, I can literally count on my hand the number of times I personally have experienced a power cut. But that's that's besides the point. Reliability in general. So we have our regular power outages. Um, And then you also have to factor in disaster. What happens when a hurricane comes outside of the regular ones, what happens when that comes. So the ability to handle traffic pretty much and reliably do so, you would have to have a lot of upfront investment. So that is why you usually just go to a hosting company that, I mean, it's their business to host the website, right? So they have it's in their best interest that your website doesn't go down while they're collecting your money. And it's your best interest to pay them the money, because little by little, to use their already established framework, because it may be a lot of cost overhead for you to go at a sensible enough venture by yourself. All right. And having it hosted, well, once you have an online presence, you have more conversions, which of course translates into the thing that makes this world go around, apparently, which is money. All right. So a website can be an essential tool. So, and I know that we have a couple semi/professional developers here in this class, but in general, I want everybody to think like a developer, think like a business person. When you go to Mary Brown's flower shop, you need to be able to convince Mary Brown that she needs a website. Why does she need a website? She's making money doing her flowering business. Why do I need an online presence when people know where the shop is, right? So you need to be able to present her with scenarios and cost benefits, um, return on investment scenarios that would allow her to realize why having an online presence will increase her revenue. So yeah, she would pay a good change. I mean, if she has a profitable enough business, she can pay a good enough change, but she could make back that money in no time. Just a short story. I remember my very, very, very first website that I ever built professionally. I was fresh out of college. I just got my job at NCU as a junior developer. But then somebody came to me one away and said, "Hey, she wants a shopping, an e-commerce website." No, poor me. Poor me, never known. Well, I mean, I took it, but I never really understood. So I was there reading up on PHP and MySQL, and because at the time I didn't really know .NET, and trying to figure out how to do this cart thing until I stumbled upon OpenCart, which is an open source e-commerce PHP framework or solution, and then I deployed it, and I collected $100,000. And that was way back when. That was a long time. And for you to just come out of college, $100,000 for a website was enough. Oh God, man, cloud nine, right? But then, I mean, I had admin access and I did maintenance. And when I looked at her revenues, because she had a jewelry store business, she had no brick and mortar structure. She had no store. She had no shop. I think she used to sell out of her van. And she put up the website and she go on little and she offer the free delivery around Kingston and FedEx to anywhere else in Jamaica and abroad. And when I looked at her revenue, she made back the $100,000 in less than 3 months and then some. So whatever money she paid me, I mean, she paid me the money and move on with her business and make enough money until she even had a store running simultaneously with the website. Right, so two streams of income. So I want you guys to think about that, even if you have to pitch it to the person, how to justify why a website is good to have. So Mark is asking, how much is it for a WordPress site right now? I'm not going to give you a dead drop figure. What I would tell you, because WordPress is very, very, very malleable. So you can make a WordPress into an e-commerce, you can make a WordPress into a standard blog, you can build a company's website from WordPress. So I can't tell you that a WordPress website is this amount of money. But there are certain guidelines as to how much money to charge based on the functionality that persons are requesting on their website. And then that would influence your WordPress implementation, right? And I mean, prices vary. prices vary. So even though I'm not going to give you any hard and fast price, um, but a good way to try and price yourself, you can always Google it. There are always people out there advising you how much development costs. What I do sometimes is I go on Upwork and look at similar projects and see how much people are bidding and how much or what's the budget that is usually there for these kind of projects. And then the advantage that you as a Jamaican have, if you have a foreign client, you can always underbid what a US developer would be doing it for. You understand? So if say a job board is going for 5,000 US, and a job board now is you can download a plugin, buy a plugin for $50, do a few customizations, put it into WordPress, and you have a job board. And you can sell it back for $5,000. But then you're a Jamaican, so if the US man is charging 5 grand, you can easily charge three, because 3 grand US is still a decent amount of money in Jamaica. Yeah, we would love 5 grand, but you can live off a tree. So I'm just saying that, you'd have to kind of research. I really haven't done any WordPress development in a while, so I can't really give you a current pricing on that. All right. But always bear in mind the effort and the functionality that the persons are requesting. All right. So the next topic is, now we have our website. So our client approached us, we chicken scratch something, or sorry, we're all professionals here. So we did up a nice, wonderful website, whether it's WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, whatever it is. So we did it up, and now we need to put it up on the internet at www.something.com so that everybody can see it. So I had mentioned from the earlier classes that you need, of course, a server. The server is not the machine, it's the application that makes the machine a web server or not. So WAMP or Apache is usually the go-to for PHP, IIS for .NET. All right. Different hosting sites may or may not. Most of them support PHP, MySQL, the LAMP stack. I think GoDaddy and a few others support the IIS hosting. All right. IIS hosting tends to be more expensive also. But anyway, let's go through the different options. And there are a few more options that may not be outlined in this slide, but we can look through them for the duration of the class. Now, shared hosting, that's number one on the list. Number one because it's the easiest to set up, it's the cheapest, it's reliable. So I mean, most of the times when you're buying a domain name and you're buying some amount of hosting, unless you explicitly want something else, most of the times you're ending up with shared hosting. All right, so shared hosting, maybe they have a big powerful machine, maybe a few powerful machines. And then what they do is they partition them. So when you buy your server space, when you buy your domain and your hosting space, if they have 2 terabytes, they allocate 50 megabytes to you. If you want more, you pay for 100 megabytes, whatever it is. They give you a few customizations, but because it's shared, they can't give you full control, because if you change something for yourself, it may not be suitable for somebody else who is sharing the server. So some people limit you. Well, they all limit you to some extent. Some people more than the others, right? So you would see a rating bar to the right. So cost-wise, it's not the most costly option. Once again, performance, it's pretty good. You can always scale up. I think they have different tiers. So the cheapest tier may say, okay, you can have up to 100 people on your site at a time. Then when your business is booming and you realize that you're having 200 people at your site, 200 people visiting your site at one time, then you probably want to scale up to the next tier, which would allow 500 comfortably, right? So that everybody can have a seamless experience. Security-wise, well, the security is not in your hands because the hosting provider is the one who would be updating the security and such. So one of the disadvantages with this is like if like maybe PHP 5 would have had a lot of security flaws and 7 is out now. And you would love to update your website to 7, but if they don't update it to 7 or update the server to be 7 capable, then it's one big security risk, right? So those things kind of contribute to the lack of security that may be perceived with this option. Skill required, like you don't have to be the most skilled and knowledgeable person to set up a hosting with this option. It's really all you need is a credit card and the ability to read, pretty much. All right, I just next, and fill out the forms and go through. Setting it up at least. Hosting it, you have to kind of know where to do, but you know. And server control, we just alluded to that you don't get much of that. All right, so dedicated hosting now. This one is a bit better than shared hosting in the sense that you get far more server control. However, it's not that much different in the sense that it's still somewhat shared. So they actually give you kind of like root access, but it's still partitioned, but maybe you just get access to a bigger slice of the pie, more resources and more control over the resources. So evidently with more control comes more cost. The performance there's no trade-off in performance. You get to manage your own security, but I guess it's 4 stars, but for me, security is as good as the person managing it. So if you're not security conscious and you don't run your security patches from time to time and so on, then you're still vulnerable. You need a bit more skill to be able to handle this one, but you get far more control. But it is not your server. That is an important part to note. All right. VPS hosting, that is just like VPS hosting is like a distributed, dedicated. So you have multiple dedicated servers that's work in tandem with each other. So that would increase like reliability, increase performance to some extent, because no one server is being pressured at the same time as much as. All right. So you would still have as much control, and there's no trade-off really for the other stuff in the grand scheme of things. I think of course, it's going to be a bit pricier than the dedicated. All right. And then we have the one everybody is clamoring over, cloud hosting. Now, cloud hosting is rather interesting because cloud hosting comes with a bunch of options in and of itself. You have 3 categories of well, not really hosting, but cloud infrastructure implementation. All right. So you have IaaS or all right. Let me start over. So you have PaaS, which is PaaS, Platform as a Service. You have what they call IaaS, but for obvious reasons, I don't like saying that one, which is Infrastructure as a Service. And then you have, SaaS, which is Software as a Service. All right. Now, the cloud is more robust than a VPS because the cloud, you can spin up as many servers or nodes or Heroku calls it dynos. Everybody has their own little nomenclature about of how they term the processing power that is used at any given point. I personally am an Azure guy, right? I've used AWS and I've used Heroku, but I just like Azure. So you know, call my Microsoft fanboy if you must. So but boo. All right. So with Azure and AWS though, and I think this one named Rackspace is, I'm going to say it's almost in their category, but it's close enough. All right. So those three allow you to do IaaS, which allows you to actually rent a virtual server. So in the VPS and the dedicated ones, you see that you don't own the server, right? So I mean, yes, you get to manage the server and so on, but you still have some restrictions when you're renting the server from Azure. The only time you cease to own it is when you stop paying rent. It is yours to do whatever you want. If you want it bigger, you scale it up. You want it smaller, you scale it down. But obviously, you have to know what you're doing on that server when you're setting up the website. So the IaaS is more for like the sysadmin type people who know how to configure WAMP, configure IIS, set up the domain routing, link up all of that stuff. And it's not even that simple. It's not like you just spin up a VM and you just get a VM. You have to spin up a virtual network, and then you have to give it a public IP, and then you have to. And I mean, I have an Azure account, so for the duration of the class, I'll log in and show you guys how it looks. For those of you who don't know, but you can sign up for a free, well, a 30-day trial. You can actually sign up for a 30-day Azure trial. I think AWS, unless they have changed, gives you up to a year for a trial, right? So you can check those out. But for the duration of the class, I'll show you guys what Azure looks like. All right. So the cloud hosting option, so that's the IaaS, and that applies to both. Well, Rackspace only does IaaS. The last time I checked. Azure and AWS. Then you have the PaaS, Platform as a Service, which AWS provides that functionality through the service called Beanstalk. Azure provides it through the service called the App Fabric. Heroku, that's all Heroku does, right? Heroku is another cloud provider that I found to be very, very useful and it's clean and nice. I like Heroku. So you Node.js methods probably will use Heroku a lot because it's free up until a certain point. All right, so the PaaS option actually allows you to build your website and without having to configure any server and any WAMP and any IIS and outfit any server with anything. You just point it to an address and say deploy there, and then when you send over the files, like, and I'm using Heroku as an example, when you deploy it to the Heroku pipeline, Heroku will actually just take the files and determine what kind of app. Well, that would have been predetermined. So you would have created the node, an empty Node.js template app. They give it an address for you, and then you point it to there, and then you just send all your Node.js or your PHP or your Python. You have all of those app templates, and then it will just have its pre-configuration done so that when it gets the files, when you go to the link, you just see a website. So you don't have to know anything about servers or anything. So that's very useful for like developers who don't want to get into those server configuration and buying and hosting and all these things. You just write your code, deploy it, and Heroku does the rest for you. You just pay them a money a month time. The advantage of cloud hosting also is that when your resources become overwhelmed, so like the scenario was when you have 200 users hitting your website capable of managing 100. I know for sure Azure does it. I'm not sure. I can't vouch for AWS. I can't, and I don't know if Heroku does it automatically, but Azure allows me to say if I get up to 75% of the maximum traffic, then scale out. So Azure has an auto scaling feature that allows it to increase the resources in the back end without my intervention. With Heroku, I can just scroll up and I say, okay, I want to move from 1 dyno to 2 dynos, and let's say each dyno can support 100 connections. So that's the kind of flexibility that cloud hosting gives, where if you need more resources, it's just a dial away. Of course, more money, but I mean, you have to pay for the convenience at the end of the day, right? So that's the advantage to cloud hosting. But as I said, for the class, we're going to go through Azure. All right. And then you have reseller hosting. So you do have people who buy up one big bunch of hosting and then resell it to other people. So I guess like Lime, I think we established Lime/Flow, Digicel. I know Yellow Pages does it. So like when you go to some companies, or when people go to some companies and say they want a website, like for instance, Yellow will say, okay, we want $250,000 to do the website itself, but you have to pay us $1 million or $1.2 million for a year of hosting. So we will host it for you and everything. Some clients would be inclined to just shell out all of that money because one, it's Yellow, and two, they don't know anything about no go buy hosting and so on. They don't know that the same hosting Yellow is saying give me $100,000 a month for. The same hosting, they could be paying a total of $350 for the year. So I mean, they would just stick to Yellow, because Yellow going to develop it and host it and everything for them. So why not? Why am I going to tell them to develop it, take it from them, hire somebody now to go online, and I mean, and it could work out cheaper, but they're not thinking that far. So reseller hosting can be a profitable business. So you can think about that also. All right, so a few things. Oh, all right, so we have less than a minute, so I'm going to kill this recording and then we'll resume on this slide. All right, sorry, kill this session and then we'll resume on this slide. So killing it now.